Alright, so we're here and you can hear the background music, you can also hear me. In this situation, we're all stuck at our house. I'm also stuck and I'm thinking of ways to overcome this. Not just to utilize this time, but to get above it. Meaning, previously when everything was normal, I used to go out and work and go to my office, go to my school, be on these meetings, but never really be able to utilize the time when I'm by myself because, I'm always dependent on human interaction. I always learn from interacting with humans, and which is why when I was by myself, I wouldn't really learn enough. I learned from being with people. And I've always felt that in this modern day with technology, with everyone being able to connect online, I've never been able to utilize that part of it. And maybe right now I'm not just helping myself overcome this, but also utilize this situation where I am left with no other option but to interact with my fellow humans online. Maybe I'll grow from this. Maybe there's something I'm going to learn from this which will help me continue this process even after the pandemic. So here I am. This is exactly why we're doing this. I was planning on writing notes so that this is like an intro and I can write, okay, intro done, right? So go ahead and pause this for a moment. There seems to be no pause, but just wait. Alright, I'm back. So is this 3 minutes? Or like 3:15? So I'm just taking notes here so that when people are trying to follow me, they're not gonna find it difficult with me, like sometimes going in tangents, going different topics. So right now, I'm gonna finish my intro, right, and just move ahead with it's obviously 3 minutes 30 seconds. So suppose in about, I'm not sure if my computer clock and that is connected, but yeah, 3 minutes 30. How about I write 4 and I just write in bracket 12:42, right? There we go. Okay, so the reason I'm here is because I'm gonna teach myself some music production. You can hear the music in the background. By music production, I mean production, not composition, because composition is something what I've been doing for last half a year. If I go to my Facebook, I can show you my page. It's called 365 Songs of Shams, which probably some of you have been following. If you're following this video, you probably are one of those person who's done this. If you haven't, I would suggest go to Facebook and do like the page. Something I don't say. So over there you can see my latest post was song number 79, but But I've actually made 80 songs. I've finished the 80th song. I've not published it. So perhaps that's something I can do. But you see, what I'm basically planning to do here is whenever I come online, whenever I'm on my PC, I need that human interaction. I learn from hearing myself talk. So you wouldn't usually do that if you were just sitting on your computer doing your work. Now that they're actually interactive ones, they're actually going to be seen by people, even if they're seen or not seen, whatever. It's like a video diary, right? Vlog. Pretty much a vlog. I'm going to publish all of this in YouTube. So pretty long intro there, I would say. 12:44. After the second intro, I'm now moving ahead to the actual thing I said. So composition, like I said, it's not composition. Composition is creating songs, which I've been doing here. I've made 80 songs already, and these songs are like either recorded with a sound card, like my Steinberg sound card, right? They're either recorded with a sound card, excuse me, which is connected to my keyboard over here and a microphone, so you get the pure sound, or they're actually fully like they're just recorded from a phone camera, phone microphone I meant. Obviously the videos are usually the phone's camera, but the audio is what really makes the difference, whether it's directly going through a sound card or being recorded through a phone. So that's recording them through a sound card is the highest quality of music production I've got. But that's not the kind of music you hear, you listen to. In fact, the music you hear in the background, all of these are produced. They've been mixed, mastered. That's basically the two principles: mixed and masters. Mixed, mastered. I mean, before mix and master is the composition, recording, that phase, which I know. I mean, after doing 80 songs, I've kind of got an idea how to create a song. Obviously, there's no stop to learning, but I felt the production part is where I've really not explored that much. The mixing part, the mastering part, right? So, excuse me. I sat with a friend of mine, Ovi is his name, and we started researching on a doc. So I'm just going to note this time down, 12:46. Yeah. So the doc. Just to give a little brief again. What are we doing here? We're doing production, music production, not composition, not recording, because that's something I've been doing over time. 80 songs already. This is music production, which involves mixing and mastering. So recently I've sat with a friend of mine, and his name is Ovi, and we've created a mixing. So we've figured that, okay, since these two are the parts, how about we start with mixing? So mix, I created a document in mix, so you can see that I'm looking for it on my drive. Excuse me. So if I go to my drive and just type mix, I get my doc that me and Ovi has been creating. It's called Mixing Tutorials. So, okay. So my friend has also done one research. It's called Fruity Delay 2. So if you look at this document, you can see we started in 13th March, which is like pretty much 1 week from now, a bit more than 1 week, because I remember we sat on a Friday and then we were supposed to sit on another Friday, which we didn't after this because of the situation, and it's been 2 days since the last Friday, so it's been 9 days. And on the first sitting, when we discussed it, I learned about a very good YouTube channel from my friend. It's called In The Mix. So we'll be watching a lot of In The Mix videos in these vlogs and learning from them. Remember, this whole process is for you to learn along, and also for me to learn better, because I learn better when I'm actually speaking. I'm kind of explaining to someone, and it's when I know that it's benefiting others. So I don't know, it's already been 6 plus 3 4 it's been 10 minutes already. If you have the patience to go through like a 10-minute video, you're great. You find what I say valuable. I really honor and respect that. But this is why I'm creating these timestamps, so that people know when, like, you know what I mean. So I'm just gonna write down here. It's gonna be about the doc, about OV meeting. So at 12:48 we are kind of discussing the doc also. Excuse me. 12:49 I would say. Yeah, so we're going through the doc again. Like I said, last Friday, not last Friday, the Friday before that, 13th March. Right now, by the way, guys, it's 22nd March. I should write that on the top, 22 March. And I started in 12:38 p.m. And right now it's 12:49, which is 11 minutes past. So in this talk, what we're doing is we have been figuring out that in the mastering process, it's mixing and then it's mastering. So in the music production process, it's mixing and then mastering. The steps before that is composition and recording, which is something I've been doing. I've made 80 songs, which I just showed you on 365 songs. I've made 80 songs, so I have an idea of how to record, the process of recording, and also process of composition and creating melodies and harmonies and all of that. But right now we're in the production step. So we figured on 13th March that in the mixing process, key elements were reverb, EQ, and delay, right? So reverb, like you have a sound, but the basic idea is you have a sound, right? You either have a guitar sound, a keyboard sound, a piano sound, some other instrument, traditional instrument, or even synthesizers, like electronic music, electronic sound. I have a keyboard here. I play piano with it. I can even play guitar sound with it. I can play also. I have a guitar too. I have a actual, actual guitar too. But I can play all sorts of sounds, even drums with that keyboard. So whatever sound you're getting, it doesn't matter what instrument, whether you're using a computer keyboard or using an actual keyboard to produce that sound. What matters is what is that sound and what frequency does that sound fall into. So cleaning up the sound is something we figured, like cleaning up before we do anything. We should clean up the sound, and clean up sound doesn't mean cleaning up outside noise. No, cleaning up sound means making it sound like so here's the idea. When you have like a lot of instrument, if you were just playing one instrument, like if I was just playing piano, it would be fine. If I was just playing the guitar, that's all right. So I'm just gonna check if the webcam is showing, like when I speak with my hand, it doesn't show my hand. So I would adjust it a bit like that. So at least, I don't know, should I do that? Just, I don't want to cover my, yeah, so like, yeah, it's okay if the head gets a bit covered, it's fine. I hope it's not really, yeah, the webcam is fine. That wouldn't change anything though. It's been 13 minutes already. So 12:52. Cleaning up. So we're in cleaning up sound. So if you were just playing a guitar, then there is no, like, it's not that much necessary, I guess, to clean up the sound, because it's just, that's the solo instrument. Like, it's not a solo performance, but it's just that, right? There is nothing else. But the moment you have a second thing, like a guitar and then a piano or a keyboard, that's when the clash starts beginning. So in order to do that, you have to separate just the guitar sound, and then the reason they clash is because they're kind of sharing the space, okay? Like your ear, when you listen in that frequency, it's sharing that space, and then some part of it overlap, and it clashes. So to do that, you want each instrument to have its own space, not clashing with the other. If you'd soon understand what I really mean by that, but that sound cleaning exactly means that. Like you have a sound, like for guitar, what is its forte? What is its prime location in the audio space? Like where does the guitar sound perfect? So it's sort of like EQ. You want to do equalization, and you want to cut out the part where you don't want the guitar to really take any space, but only and boost where you want guitar to take space and keep it there. Another part of cleaning up, which we did not figure out on the 13th March, which I went on to figure out later. As you can see, this doc really means, I said 20th March, which was supposed to be our next meeting. So what I'm going to basically do is after 20th March, I'm going to write down everything else that I discover, like right after that. But these discoveries were before 20th March, before that Friday meeting. I shouldn't have done that. But anyways, I'm going to have to adjust my thing again. But I guess this is how I see, like, best for me to use the computer, so it's fine. Maybe I'll just bring my hand up. It's okay. Going back to the doc. So, and then I figured compression is another technique for that cleaning up process. You want to do compression and then you want to do EQ, because you don't want to really equalize. Well, actually, what you want to do compression and so it's I'm not sure if you're supposed to do EQ first and then you do compression, or you're supposed to do compression first and then EQ. Let me think. I'm trying to avoid lyrics-based music. This music is a bit, I hope it has a bit of lyrics. I hope it doesn't bother me much, or bother you much. So what does compression do? Compression allows you to oh, by the way, I'm trying to make it interactive, so I'm just speaking about compression. I think I should show you what compression really means. So compression sound, if I just Google compression sound, what are the images I get? Yeah, so when I'm explaining compression, I think I should show you, like, see, so look at this one. This audio, as you can see, is like, has a lot of peaks, right? Or like even this one, if we just look at this audio, you can see on the right side that this audio has like these yellow parts that are peaked. It's like above the average sound, and then you can see some sound are very low. Even if I look at this sound, you can see that there are low sounds and there are high sounds. So compression will basically like average it out, you know, like there won't be too high volumes, there will be too low volumes. So you can see here there is a red is compressed. This is a better illustration. So I'm gonna see if I can view the image separately. This is a better image. So all those, like this, the blue ones were original. See how they're like big, and then right. So but then after compression, what they did was they turned it into an average. Now they all look like they're all not too high, not too low. High volume, I meant. Now equalization after that comes for cleaning up. Like I said, equalization is another step. Like I said, equalization is another step. Excuse me. So EQ, if I can show you, EQ, equalization, sound. Let's see what images I get now. What if I just write equalization FL Studio? Then, by the way, FL Studio is a software I'm using for my music production. So you'll be learning FL Studio if you are wanting to learn from these. I like this music. Sorry, I might sometimes sound weird. Trying to be as less weird as possible because I'm putting myself out there, and this is like all thoughts coming out, right? I don't know what I'm gonna say in these. Sometimes I might be unaware of things I say. But EQ, now we're in EQ, that's 1257. So EQ, and I just finished talking about compression, so this is going to be about EQ, right? So compression was about cleaning up the sound. Remember, compression and EQ, I think both are part of cleaning up the sound, but compression was more of the volume level. Like you don't want the high volumes if there are two high volumes, if there are two low volumes. Naturally, that's how it's going to be. But you want to kind of level that. So there are no two highs, there are two lows. I don't mean pitch high, I mean volume high. So be careful of that. Now, the EQ, this is the parameter EQ. This is the one EQ that I would use in FL Studio. What it does is, when the sound plays, you can see that this sound doesn't really take much from here. This space, you see, is empty. There's a little bit of frequency. Now that is what will probably clash, because that's not its usual space. So that's probably somebody else's, and it's a low frequency, so it's going to be bass. Now, this is probably, I don't know what it is, like what instrument is producing this sound. But let's pretend it's not the bass. I mean, it's definitely not the bass. So this is going to clash with the bass. So if you do this sort of cutting, it allows this sound to not pass through. Now, you see there's a low cut here, like this cut going through here, also because that's not its high space. So this is the high space. And here again, you can see a little high and then going a little low, and then high again, a lot of high, and then really low. So this is a really good example of an EQ. This will allow this sound to have its own space. So that's also, I'm considering it to be part of cleaning up the noise. And then, now the question was, do we do EQ first or do we do compression first, according to this doc? For those who just joined at this time, this is a research and study of music production I've been doing with my friend Ovi, and because both him and I have been in composition and have been recording, well, production is something we have not done, and we wanted to help each other learn. So we created a doc, and we sat on 13th March, and we were looking into in production. We saw two steps: the mixing and then the mastering, and this is all about mixing. That's why the title is called Mixing Tutorials. And on the day, we figured that clearing the steps in mixing is first clearing the sound cleaning. Sorry, not clearing, cleaning. So in the sound cleaning part, there's EQ, there's compression, and the question was, do we do compression first or do we do EQ first? So, and we figured, I don't know yet what to do, but I feel like if you do compression first, then you would also have the sound that is coming from the other ends, right? And then you would clean up the sound. But I guess the EQ compression step doesn't really matter, maybe, because the delay, when we go to delay, it'll, like, delay is like an effect. Effects should come after compression, after cleaning. So you clean first. It probably doesn't matter if it's EQ first or compression first, but after that you're going to do I'll just take a moment. I'm going to put another timestamp here, 1 or 2. EQ, compression, effect. So this is about equalization, compression, and then, which is cleaning the sound up, right? First, making sure it's not too high, not too low volume. Like, it's not spiking up and then it's not like really low so you can't hear it. So making sure they're all level, and then you want to make sure each instrument, or not each, like we're talking about one sound by itself, because this is a whole process you do for each of the sounds. So this sound, like let's say it's a guitar sound, you want it to be boosted on its core frequencies in the equalization, and you want it to tone it down, like put it down on the spaces it doesn't really use. But sounds by itself, like what I learned is if you just test sound by itself, then it's not gonna, then when you put them together, it's not gonna sound good. So it's all about experimenting, trial and error. So you want to observe the sound by itself and see which frequencies it's high and low. But once you do that, you want to hear it with the rest of it. Excuse me. And then after you're done cleaning, it's about the effects. And a common effect is reverb, delay, right? So like we see here, Ovi has done some research on fruity delay. So the fruity delay is something I would like to go through, but other than that, there's also reverb. I've gone through some reverb. We've seen in the mix tutorial before. I don't know what that one was. Let me just click it to see what it really was about. And
welcome to another video. I'm Michael, and today I'm going to be showing
how to mix. So this was a 16-minute video. I think we watched almost most part of it, which was about the whole mixing process, and that's where we kind of learned all these steps. So, and then we figured, oh, there are 3 steps: sound leveling, cleaning up sound, adding artistic effects. Okay, so it's a good thing that I just reviewed this now. Like, I was thinking it's cleaning up sound and then it's effects, but it's actually 3 things. Leveling, so sound leveling is the compression, like leveling, right? And then cleaning up is the EQ. So then it means you should do compression first, then the EQ, then the artistic sound. I'm going to do a timestamp here and say this again so that somebody can just go to 105 and be able to do this. By the way, when I say 105, I mean the time, not the time in the video, but like my actual clock time. So the timestamps will be going into the clock time, in the actual video time. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about what I say. It's an added information. You would know what time of the day it is. By the way, in case you're wondering, this is 22nd March. That's when I'm recording this, and it's 1:05 p.m. I started this video in 12:38 p.m. So it's been 17 minutes already. So if you have gone through the whole video, you're pretty patient. Moving ahead. Like I said, there are 3-step process, and sound leveling is what compression will help you do. Cleaning up sound is what EQ will help you do, and adding artistic effects like delay, reverb, but also other kind of effects will come in here now. So I haven't really researched on the other kind of effects yet. I'm mainly going through compression, EQ, and then delay and reverb sort of things. These are the kind of things. One thing I learned is keep it simple. Like, it's better to master the use of each element in the production process, like in your software, FL Studio, than to it's better to do that than to learn half of it and then use like 10 elements. Anyways, I'm doing this record on Ubuntu Linux, so I'm kind of what I just figured is I can only do the learning process here, but not be able to actually implement it because I don't have the software open here. I can't have the software open here because this is FL Studio. So excuse me. So what I'll do, I mean, it's not just going to be all about sound production. I'm going to do all sorts of tutorials, these are not tutorials, by the way, these are learning along sort of things. It's like vlogs. So if I like this, then I probably will be doing this the whole day, and that would really boost up my own learning. That's a lot of videos to publish. It's fine. YouTube won't have restrictions over limiting how much video I can really upload, right? Good thing is you have these things records. You kind of can go back, and I mean, I don't know. I don't think I will ever have the time to go back, because if I'm recording myself whole day, would I ever be able to go through them? It's not meant for me, actually. It is meant, the way it helps me is the process. My learning helps because I learn from speaking out loud and from the process of helping you guys learn, but helping others learn. But it's probably going to be year after year, days after day of other people going through these and learning through the process. That's why I'm keeping timestamps. So I'm going to go ahead and make another one, because, you know, these are philosophical talks. So moving back again. So remember sound, since I can't do, like, I don't have the FL Studio open here, but it's fine, I can still learn and then apply it on my Windows PC. I'll have OBS in my Windows PC as well, so I can do it from there as well. It's pretty fairly easy, because really getting OBS to work with the webcam was a big struggle in Ubuntu. What I've learned is you need to do the PPA installation. So there are two kinds of installation, PPA, and then there's the other kind, which I don't know, but I did the other kind from the beginning. I figured PPA would solve it. I thought it would, and it did. So that's nice. Moving ahead with these three processes. So I've kind of gone through all of these. I know the compression. I want to really see if I can apply compression, right? Like I've gone through some, and I've got through some vocal processing. So instrument processing and vocal processing is kind of there's a little difference there. So in vocal processing, there was the tuning vocals with new tone, which is kind of like fixing pitches. I would like to not do much of that. It's kind of like, it's a bias. Most of our generation will have a bias against it, but the future generation is going to be like, who cares? But full song breakdown was of a professionally done song, and how they made it. I was going through it in the mix video. I didn't really learn much from it. So I did learn much from it. I meant to say I couldn't understand the whole of it, because it was he was talking about a song that he made. And just going through the beats, made the beats first. So anyways, I don't know what I should do now. Like compression, learn compression again. It's not that I've mastered compression. There are certain things. Yeah, I can kind of review compression, because it was some elements of it that needed to be used, because I need to then use the compression in actual terms in the actual software. But let's go ahead and I'm going to see if I can play a compression video here. Vocal mixing, then vocal processing, compression research. It just says compression research, which is kind of weird. I didn't really click on. I'm going to lower my volume here a bit. Yeah, so I didn't really leave a link of compression video, which is kind of interesting. Wow. It just said compression research. Okay. Let's do some more compression research. What happened there? Compression, FL Studio. Something happened to the music? Just stopped. Yes, I don't know what happened, but my music just suddenly stopped. Okay, so this is the research we've done on compression. I mean, Google research. It's how to compress with FL Studio compression tutorial. Compression. So I would rather go to YouTube and then check from there, because I get more information. More is visible. So it's a very good background music. Alone in Rain. Now it's Dreaming in Rain. I don't know. The rain thing is pretty nice for me, is it? Compression tutorial. Basics of how to compress properly. That's a 10-minute video. I have an electronic producer. In the mix, EQ or compression first. Okay. So this is kind of probably would answer the question that we were just asking. It's a 10-minute video, but compression. How to use compression. Compression explained. That's probably the one that I saw, and don't know what they really used. There's FL Studio Guru, which talks about vocal mixing, compression, EQ. So that's one thing. And in the mix, are you using this multi-band compression technique? This is the one probably I also watched. So what I learned from them is, if I open a FL Studio compression picture, I'll be able to tell. See if I can. Yeah. Okay, so there are certain, like some very important parts here, like threshold, attack, ratio, the release, the gain, the type. So that's basically what we need to see. Like that's the major part of it, of a compression, the major elements of it. So ratio is like, how do I explain? Ratio is deciding how much compression will be used in your sound, plainly speaking. So in this one you can see it's a 30:1 ratio. It's like highest ratio. So like a lot of ratio here. If it's 2:1, then it's like half ratio. I think that's what it is, unless, or it's the other way around. But yeah, this is like really high ratio. So I can go here, do another timestamp for 1:14. So compression detail, right? Going back, so this is the timestamp for compression detail. So I'm going to go back to it again. So there are certain elements, 6 elements. So there's ratio, there's release, threshold, attack, gain, type. As you can see from here, we're using FL Studio, of course, for our music production lessons. And yeah, so ratio is the first thing that should be here. Is it 30:1? Here it's 30:1 or 2:1. 1:1 is not going to give you any sort of compression. That's what I learned. So I presume the higher the ratio, like if it's a 2:1, 3:1, 4:1, then you've got more of the compression will be used. The rest of the buttons really is the compression knobs, but ratio is what then, like how much of that setting that you just set up will be used on top of your sound. So there's like input sound and there's output sound coming in and out of compression. Threshold is like where do you want the sound to cut. Like if your volumes are like, if your sound volumes are rising like this, you would put it here. Then anytime your sound goes above this threshold, it's going to be cut down. Now attack is how much time it's gonna, like the attack, like the moment it detects a sound, is it just going to be like cut it off right away, or is it going to be like slowly cutting it off? Because if you cut it off right away, it's going to sound really distorted. Same goes for release. It's like when the sound falls below the threshold, it's going to then stop cutting it, right? But does it stop right away, or does it allow you to gradually go down? So having a proper ratio and having a proper attack and release is what you need. Gain is then after the threshold, after we've limited. So threshold, gain, you can kind of think of it, attack, release, opposites, threshold, gain is opposite. Threshold decides like where do you want the sound to like cut off, like above it, it's just going to be gone. But gain is once it's set, once you have that sound, you know, if you put a threshold, your overall volume is going to be very low, right? Gain is then going to give some gain to whatever the output sound is. So I would consider gain simply like, if I don't use gain here, I can just go and use like what do you call that? Increase the volume later on. There's a word for it. It's not increase the volume, but anyways. And type is something I haven't really used, but it's probably hard, or is it a soft? It's a different kind of compression. That's all. So this is what we really need to worry about. And one thing I've learned from FL Studio is to use the Edison. Like if I just search FL Studio images, let's see what I get. Yeah, so like here you can see that so this is the output sound, right? So this seems like very well compressed because they're not kind of similar. It doesn't look like very organic, right? There's one really high peak though, which I don't know. By the way, if it's it might not be natural, it might have a compression. So compression doesn't. So the what I've learned from compression is if you export your audio, you visualize, you see your audio, and then after compression, if you do another Edison recording and export it again, then you can tell the difference, and you can kind of like give that eyeball and see like, okay, I think it got compressed well. But it's all about listening, really. It doesn't really matter. What matters the most is listening. So it's a lot to learn in FL Studio. FL Studio is like an ocean, but I'm glad I've made that decision to learn it. Anyways, because recently I was having this confusion between like, should I not use Windows at all? And then I figured, no, I mean, should I not use closed source at all? And I figured there is no such alternative of FL Studio open source yet. So if anyone knows, you can tell me. But also there's another thing. I mean, if I'm paying for it, then it's fine. I feel I know I'm not supporting open source in that manner, but I've kind of got used to FL Studio. It's more important for me now to do music production than to explore the alternatives. At one point, I will definitely, like, if you can give me a suggestion, I will learn it, but I can't promise you that I will leave FL Studio and adopt that yet. So anyways, another timestamp. Time for another timestamp. It's 109, 119. So compression is done. Now we're going to go ahead with what? Yes, compression is done. We're going to go ahead with this search result where it was after compression. What should go first, EQ or compression? So not sure if I should see this, but I think this will help me understand EQ and compression a little better. One thing I've learned about learning, the process of learning, is to watch several videos, several explanations from several individuals of the same thing. Then your knowledge, your understanding really solidifies, unless the first one was good enough, right? So I'm going to lower my background music volume a bit because I'm now going to listen to a tutorial. Yeah. Or I can actually pause it because I'm sure in the mix guy will have a background music already. Okay, moving ahead.
In the world of DAWs, computers, and plugins, it seems that the possibilities are completely limitless.
Seems like he does have a background sound.
Often lead people to feel a little bit paralyzed and not knowing which order to do things in and why.
The order, right?
So
Like I was saying.
I'm going to talk about EQ and compression, why I do them in a certain order.
I'm gonna
and what order you could do them in depending on what you're trying to achieve. In this video, I'm going to
remind the way I'm sitting.
And show you all the signal routing and EQ and compression and whatnots. But the short answer is EQ or compression first. It really just depends what you're trying to achieve and what sounds you're going for.
For the EQ and
that's not very much help to anyone. So let's just jump straight into the DAW and have a chat. So I'm inside the session here, inside FL Studio.
So it's kind of weird here because now he's showing himself on the webcam and you're not going to see him because it's going to be covering me because since I am on the webcam on this side. So, alright, that's going to be interesting. How do I do this?
And
I can obviously, if I pull myself and bring it to the top, I don't think that's going to change the in between the videos, so it's alright.
Some guitar, which I'm going to be EQing and compressing. It could be anything.
So right now I'm covering him. He's there on the
concept, but let's just take a listen to what we're working with first.
Let's see, I'll explain what he's saying.
So there's a lot of potential in those recordings. They've had a little bit of processing, but if I highlight the low end, you'll be able to hear that there's an awful lot of rumble and just excess noise. Let's have a quick 1-minute chat about EQ and compression and what I'm trying to use it to achieve.
Before he moves forward, what's interesting here is he's explaining to us that, by the way, this is, thank you, in the mix. I'm not sure if this kind of video is going to be accepted in YouTube, but I'm just here to help people. So I'm giving credit to EQ in the mix for the video. I'm kind of republishing his tutorial, but it's kind of like a breakdown of what he's explaining, right? So who knows? Anyways, I'm gonna also have to research and find out if I can kind of move myself away, like in between a video that is being recorded. But yeah, it's what I liked about this technique here. So I'm gonna go to compression or EQ first is going to be 12, 23, 123 I meant. YouTube video so people know. So I know that's when it's not exactly now, but it started a minute back. But yeah, so what he did is he kind of took that low end, like if you just go 1 minute back, he just took that low end and he's listening to the low end sounds and no high ends. Guitar is usually high end sounds, so he's seeing that he's talking about some rumbling sound. This is one thing I've learned recently is to understand if something is right or wrong, and it's not just in sound engineering, it's also like in programming, is you want to really increment it to the highest level so you can tell if it's good or not, rather than like a little bit tweaking. But anyways, I hope.
Let's have a quick 1 minute chat about EQ and compression and what I'm trying to use it to achieve in the mix. So EQ is simply a tool that I use for two purposes: to either increase the energy of a certain frequency or group of frequencies, or to decrease the energy in a certain frequency or group of frequencies. For instance, I can decrease the energy in the low end and decrease the energy in the high end. And now I've changed the distribution of the frequency content in this guitar. It's now very incredibly mid-focused. Let's reset this. When it comes to compression in the mix, again, I'm trying to do two things. The first thing is control the dynamic range. So if a sound gets too loud, I want to just reduce that peak, squash it a little bit, make the sound a little bit more fat. And while controlling the dynamic range, you can also control the transients. So you can choose to make it a bit more spiky and jumpy, or you can smooth off the sound. And then the second thing is to maybe use an analog style compressor to add some warmth and color. But that really is it with EQ and compression. It's just controlling the tonal balance and then controlling the dynamics. But the two are incredibly closely linked because the compressor is going to be acting on the peak of the signal, and you can control which frequencies contribute to that peak the most. The signal flow is going to start with this EQ. Then after it, I'm going to have a gain plugin just to match the gain out of the EQ. Afterwards, I was going to use Fruity Limiter, but I've decided instead to use this plugin called TDR Nova.
So that's interesting. Remember I told you that it's just a gain which comes with the compression, but EQ doesn't come with the gain. So it's just doing an EQ, and then because of the EQ, the sound will be lower. He just adds a gain. So then he uses the compression. Then he has TDR Nova, Wave Candy, Fruity Parametric EQ again. So I don't know all of that, but okay, he's talking about Nova. Let's see. Nova.
Limiter, but I've decided instead to use this plugin called TDR Nova, and there is a free version of this plugin.
So
it's pretty complicated, but it's actually just a much easier way for me to represent what's going on. So with our regular compressor, we have a threshold, a ratio, attack, and release. And we're all
I've just spoken about that a
few
minutes
back.
back.
If I press play, you'll see and hear some compression. So on those loudest peaks, it's just cutting it down and then slowly recovering based on the threshold and ratio, attack and release. However, this doesn't let us know which frequencies are contributing to those peaks the most. So what I'm going to do instead is use TDR Nova. And what this does is gives us a graphical representation of which frequencies are causing the compression to be active. It's important to remember that when the compression is active, it's not just compressing the low end or the high end. If the compression is reducing the gain, it's reducing the gain of every single frequency equally. So with this TDR Nova, we have a graphical display, and then we have a threshold, ratio, attack, and release, just like any other compressor. But the difference is that this is a parametric EQ, so we can actually use this as an EQ and a compressor. I'm simply going to be using it as a single band compressor, just the same as the Fruity Limiter. Threshold is represented in blue. The yellow line is sort of the effective output gain and the gain reduction. So when the yellow line dips, that's when gain reduction is active. And you can see relative to this threshold which frequencies are the loudest or have the most energy.
He's just using it for the visualization. He's not actually going to use EQ here.
If I line up the Fruity Limiter and the Nova together, you can see that they do act in the same way and their gain reduction follows each other. So now I'm just going to turn off that limiter because I don't need it, and I'm going to be using the EQ and the Nova. So I've muted the output, but what we can see on the Nova is that currently, looking at the input frequencies, we can see that the low end is triggering this compression quite a lot. Now, the threshold is based on all the frequencies summed together, but because of the analyzer, we can see that there's this rumble down here, and there's also this spike at around 150 or 130 that's causing the compression to be
So what he
active.
means by this rumble is, like, he's basically saying this is unnecessary. And how do we know that? Maybe it's because of this meter. You can see that most of this sound is above this threshold, and anything that is below, it's like a rumble. It's like a, you know, you don't need that sound. You know, if you just don't have it, it's better. So, anyways, but this Nova is really helpful here. With the Nova, he can tell which part of the sound, which part in the frequency spectrum is it really causing that high. So if he just lowers that in, he might need less of compression. Okay, interesting.
These frequencies, which are triggering the compressor, are reducing the volume of everything. So we're losing our high end,
right,
our mid range, just because the low.
Right, just because in one part it's like going up, it's reducing the sound of everything. So interesting.
End is triggering the compression. Now,
I'm glad I watched this video.
Is to have the compression being triggered by a little bit of everything to have a quite balanced compressed sound. So looking back down at my effects chain, I have the EQ into some gain to match it. Then I have my compression here in red. And then I also have a dB meter just so that I can try and gain match a little bit more accurately. Now, if I were to go on,
what's the dB meter?
EQ,
maybe that's the wave candy. Oh yeah, it's the wave dB meter. So I don't know. So there are some things he's using that I don't really have. I have to go get those things. I feel like these are useful. So in the mix, we're watching in the mix video. This is 1:30 now. Moving to a new page. Excuse me. 1:30, and we're looking at continuing the video, and we're looking at we're still in the same video, so it's fine. Okay. Nova, Wave Candy. I guess Wave Candy and Nova is the two things that I need to really like download and use.
And then maybe make a little bit of a cut here as well. Let's take a listen to this. So it's turned into quite a thin and bright sound, and depending on what the mix needed, this might...
This is Tyler. Tyler
Advertisements.
is writing an email
don't like
to
it.
his boss.
So anyways, skip ad.
might be good. Let's add a little bit of gain back to gain match it. It's now roughly at the same volume with and without the EQ. And now if I turn Nova back on, what we can see is that if I start without the EQ, we'll see these peaks triggering the compression. And then when I turn the EQ and the gain back on, you'll see that the compression is being triggered by a lot of frequencies, and it's a more balanced sort of compression.
It's really interesting how...
I'm just muting the output for a moment. With the EQ off, we can see that this is peaking quite high.
The higher.
All of these peaks are just barely touching the threshold, especially up here. They're not even close.
I'm going to take a little pause here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you can see the high peaks are going above and...
So that it's being cut. We can see that these peaks are quite balanced, and all of these peaks are touching or going over the threshold, which means that the compression is being triggered by a wide variety of frequency content. It's being triggered by the high-end transients, the mid-range with a lot of like tone and character in it, and also the low end, which is, you know, the sound projecting from the sound hole and that sort of boomy full sound. So what I like to do, along with a lot of other producers and mixing engineers, is use some EQ before compression to make sure that the sound going into the compression is balanced, so that the compression is going to be getting triggered by a nice balanced sound. Because if there's too much low end or too much high end that's triggering the compressor, all the other sounds are going to be reduced in volume and suffer as a result.
So what he's trying to say is very cool. What he's trying to say is he uses like a lot of other producers, EQ before compression once to just level out this whole EQ, the triggers that is causing the compression. Because if at one frequency it's too loud and the other frequency is too less, then that one trigger pushes all the sound down, and that's not good. So he first levels out those sides. So it's like balanced. All the frequencies are triggering the compression. Then probably he's going to use compression EQ again at the end. That's what he's saying.
Those high-end transients and that sparkle of the guitar to shine through the mix if it's constantly being suppressed by the compression. Some of the compressors that I use regularly, such as the FG Stress, actually has a high-pass detection module. And if you engage this, it means that the compressor doesn't actually look, or I should say listen, to the low end when it's choosing the compression. It just ignores it, and it just compresses based on the mid and the high range, which is a handy feature, but a lot of compressors don't have that built in. However, the processing doesn't stop here, because although the compression is acting on a much more balanced signal, and I think it sounds good, my guitar is pretty thin right now. So what I like to do as well is do EQ after the compression. So if I go further down my signal chain and just add another EQ here, what I sometimes like to do is use another EQ, usually an analog modeling EQ, to try and add a little bit more of that thickness back into the sound. And I like to do that just so that it doesn't sound too harsh or too brittle. So the final answer of what I use is subtractive EQ, compression, and then additive EQ. But it always depends on what sound you want. For some people, you might really want that low end to be triggering the compression. It might be some kind of really cool artistic effect. I've heard a lot of...
This is pretty cool. He's talking about subtractive EQ. I need to lock this time down. It's 1:35. So you're using subtractive, compression, and then additive EQ. So obviously what subtractive additive means is you're mainly cutting down in EQ on certain frequencies so that the compression is leveled. And then obviously and after the compression you want to then boost where you want it to be boosted, instead of in one EQ doing all the rest. So it's an interesting process. I think now really it's going to be about opening FL Studio, analyzing a sound, and actually working on a sound production.
Especially in the sort of indie and indie rock scene, who when using electric guitar you can really hear the compression so much when they're playing these sort of held sustained chords, and you can hear the compression just being ducked by this low end, but it kind of actually results in a really cool sound. And would it work in a really dense mix where you want lots of bright energy and all sorts of stuff going on? Probably not, but it does. But it definitely worked in those songs. So as always, there's no rights or wrongs, but if you do this sort of approach, subtractive EQ, compression, and additive EQ, whilst always asking yourself, right, what am I actually trying to do here? I'm trying to clean up the sound, I'm trying to control those peaks so that they're not too aggressive, and then I'm trying to warm up the sound again. As long as you've got a vision in your head and you're following your ears.
He's also using a lot of gain in between.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Okay, that's another timestamp, 1:37. Okay, what do we do next? So if I go back to the search result for compression, I seem to have understood compression well enough by now, and then also EQ well enough by now. Now it's about really learning individual instruments. Sorry about this. Now it's about learning about individual instruments. I'm going to check my messengers. I got some messages. Seems like they're notifications rather. Yeah. Anyways, excuse me. So now it's really about the main instruments, like the vocals, the guitar, the piano, and then some extra stuff, and drums, of course. 4 things. So how do you really do compression and EQ on those things? And then the next step would be the effect. So before we go to the effects part, I would like to learn about how do you really compress, EQ a guitar. So let's talk about guitar. Guitar compression. FL Studio. So let's see what comes up. If it's a in the mix video, then it's good. Subtractive EQ for clarity, acoustic guitar. How to make guitar sounds beautiful. So we've got a few search results, and I guess I can go through that. But I shall have to take a little bit of a break here. I wish OBS had a pause button, which is kind of weird. Why does it not have a pause button? So if I stop, it means I have to start again. So I'm taking a little break here, and I'm going to take a time step.